The invitation never sent. The stars in the galaxy glittered like diamonds in the dark, but one world, Earth, was left in the shadows. For centuries, Earth had been watched by the Galactic Council, a powerful group of alien races that controlled the universe. They watched humanity grow, evolve, and develop in ways they couldn't fully understand. But Earth's invitation to join the galaxy's great alliance had never been sent, and the Council had its reasons. On Earth, humans had no idea what the rest of the galaxy thought of them. They went about their lives, building technology, expanding their knowledge, and exploring the unknown. But little did they know, their planet was a subject of debate among the most powerful beings in the universe. Some of the members of the Council believed Earth was not ready to be part of the galaxy, while others feared what would happen if humans were ever given the chance to join. For years, the Council kept Earth's seat empty at the table of galactic power. No one dared to extend an invitation. Some said the humans were too unpredictable, too violent, and too emotional. Others whispered about something far darker, a hidden secret deep within the planet, something that no one outside of Earth could ever understand. But the truth was, no one really knew why Earth had been left out of the Galactic Alliance. It was simply an unspoken rule. Earth was too unknown, too dangerous, and the Council feared what they might discover if they ever invited the humans into their fold. On Earth's surface, things seemed normal. Nations rose and fell, leaders changed, and technology advanced. However, there were whispers in the scientific community of something extraordinary, a hidden force, ancient and powerful, deep beneath the Earth's crust. Scientists, explorers, and adventurers searched for clues, but it seemed as though the planet was keeping its secret well hidden. In the deepest corners of Earth, a discovery was being made, something that could change everything. A group of scientists, funded by governments and private organizations, had unearthed a hidden chamber buried beneath the Earth's surface. What they found inside would leave them stunned, and their discovery would soon have the galaxy trembling with fear. The object they uncovered was not of human design. It was ancient, impossibly advanced, and unlike anything Earth had ever seen. The scientists couldn't explain it, but they knew one thing for sure: it was not from this world. And that was just the beginning. What they uncovered was a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever known. The Galactic Council, meanwhile, continued its meetings. The Council was made up of the most advanced and powerful races in the galaxy, each with their own agenda. Some were peaceful, while others were more aggressive. Some were eager to expand their influence, while others wanted to keep things as they were. Earth, however, was never a priority. They had long dismissed the human race as too primitive, too divided, and too untrustworthy. But one member of the Council, a race of ancient beings known as the Luminaries, had been watching Earth more closely than the others. The Luminaries had once been humanity's greatest allies, long before the rise of the Council. They knew the truth about Earth. They knew about the ancient force beneath the surface, and they were afraid. The Luminaries tried to warn the other members of the Council, but their warnings were ignored. "Humans are nothing," one council member scoffed. "They fight amongst themselves. They barely understand their own technology. They will never be a threat." But the Luminaries knew better. They had seen the signs. They had seen the changes taking place on Earth. The humans were evolving in ways no one could have predicted, and the weapon they had uncovered was a game changer. As Earth's discoveries began to grow in scope, the first whispers of their true power reached the Council. Still, they chose to ignore the warnings. The galaxy had been at peace for so long. Why risk upsetting that balance? Earth was still too small, too insignificant in the grand scheme of things. The Council would not allow them to disrupt the status quo. But time was running out. The humans had begun to unlock the secrets of their planet. The relics, the ancient power hidden beneath the Earth, were slowly being understood. Humanity was on the verge of something incredible, something no one in the galaxy had ever imagined. And Earth's invitation to the Council was no longer a matter of choice. It was coming. whether the galaxy was ready or not. As Earth's leaders learned of the new technology, they kept it secret. The relics were too powerful to be shared with the galaxy just yet. The time would come when Earth would reveal its true power, but not until humanity was ready. And as the leaders of Earth prepared, the Council remained blissfully ignorant, continuing to ignore the growing danger they had refused to acknowledge for so long. The invitation had never been sent, and now it might be too late. The galaxy had no idea what they had been avoiding all this time, and when they finally realized the truth, it would be a regret they could never undo. The Earth's chair, left empty for so long, was about to be filled, and the galaxy was about to discover why they should have invited Earth long before. Earth's secret was no longer a secret. In a high-tech facility beneath the surface of the planet, a team of scientists was racing against time. The discovery they had made was nothing short of extraordinary, a relic from an ancient civilization that predated humanity itself. At first, they thought it was just an artifact, something buried long ago by an unknown race. But as they studied it, they realized the truth. It was a weapon, one that could change the course of history. The weapon was unlike anything they had ever seen. It wasn't just a tool of destruction. It had a purpose far greater than that. Its power seemed to be tied to the very core of the Earth itself, as if it had been planted there to ensure that humanity would one day rise to use it. The scientists couldn't understand how it worked, but they knew it was only a matter of time before someone else would. The team of experts worked tirelessly to unlock the secrets of the artifact, but they couldn't do it alone. The discovery was too important, too dangerous to be kept hidden. They knew the global powers would need to be involved. Earth was on the brink of something that could either save them or doom them. The Council's decision to leave Earth's chair empty had been made under the assumption that humanity was far from ready for the galactic stage. But they had no idea what lay beneath their feet. Meanwhile, the members of the Galactic Council were beginning to hear rumors. The Luminaries, a race of ancient beings that had been monitoring Earth for centuries, had begun to send warnings to the Council. They tried to convince the others that Earth was not the insignificant planet they had believed it to be. Yet, despite their efforts, the Council chose to ignore them. "We have had peace for millennia," said a representative from the Zorath race, a tall, insectoid species with razor-sharp mandibles. "Why disrupt that with a primitive world that is still stuck in their endless wars? Let them be. They are no threat to us." But the Luminaries refused to let it go. "You don't understand," said Ilarion, a glowing, ethereal figure who represented the Luminaries on the Council. "The Earth holds something that you are all blind to. If you don't take action now, it will be too late. I have seen it. The humans will not remain insignificant forever." Despite their warnings, the Council dismissed them. They were convinced that Earth was just a ticking time bomb, waiting to implode under its own weight. But in the deepest corners of the galaxy, a new fear began to grow. The same ancient power that had hidden under Earth's surface for so long was starting to stir. The discovery of the relic triggered something. It was as though Earth had been waiting for the right moment to awaken this power. And now, humanity had the key. The ancient civilization that had left the weapon buried deep within the Earth had understood its potential. They had left it behind, knowing that one day, a species would come along that could unlock its power. That species was humanity. The humans were not ready to wield the weapon, not yet. But they were closer than the Council realized. The governments of Earth were scrambling to gain control of the knowledge, knowing that whoever held the secret to the weapon would hold unimaginable power. They were starting to understand the stakes. The weapon wasn't just a tool. It was a force that could change the balance of power across the galaxy, and the Council had underestimated humanity's potential for far too long. As the weapon's secrets were slowly revealed, the Council's fears began to grow. But it was too late. The humans had already started to prepare. Earth's leaders knew that they couldn't trust anyone outside their world. Not yet. They couldn't risk revealing the weapon before they understood it fully. The Luminaries, the only beings who truly understood the weapon's potential, were the first to realize that the time for diplomacy was over. They had watched the humans for centuries, and they knew what they were capable of. But even the luminaries were unsure whether humanity was ready for the responsibility the weapon would bring. In a hidden meeting deep in the heart of the luminaries' homeworld, Ilarion spoke to his fellow council members. "We must act now," he urged. "The weapon is awakening. The Earth is no longer just a curiosity. It is a force. If we do not make contact with them soon, we risk losing the opportunity to guide them. And if we wait too long, they will act on their own terms." But it was clear that the other members of the council were still unconvinced. They saw Earth as nothing more than a small, chaotic planet in a distant corner of the galaxy. They didn't see the danger, yet. Back on Earth, the situation was escalating. Humanity was divided on how to use the newfound power. Some wanted to use it for peace, to protect the planet from future threats. Others saw it as a weapon to be wielded against anyone who dared challenge them. There was no unified front, no clear plan. But the clock was ticking, and soon the galaxy would learn the truth. Earth's invitation to join the Galactic Council had never come. The chair at the table had always been empty, but that was about to change. The Council had left Earth behind because they didn't understand the true potential of the human race. They didn't know what humanity had been hiding beneath its surface. And now, as Earth began to unlock the power that had been waiting for centuries, the galaxy would soon regret leaving Earth's seat vacant. The real question was, when Earth stood up, would the galaxy be ready to face what they had been avoiding all along? The weapon was no longer a secret to the people of Earth. News of the discovery spread quickly, igniting excitement, fear, and confusion across the globe. Scientists, military leaders, and politicians all began scrambling for control over the ancient artifact. They knew the stakes were higher than anything they had faced before, and no one was sure how to handle it. Inside the secret facility where the weapon was being studied, the scientists were making breakthroughs faster than they could comprehend. They had discovered that the relic was not just a weapon. It was a device that could channel energy from deep within the Earth's core, releasing unimaginable power. The more they studied it, the more they realized that it could either save humanity or destroy it. Dr. Evelyn Archer, the lead scientist on the project, stood over the glowing relic in awe. "It's not just a weapon," she whispered. "It's a key to something far greater than we ever thought possible." Her voice trembled with both fear and excitement. But not everyone felt the same way. General Marcus Steele, a military leader who had been appointed to oversee the security of the project, was more concerned about the potential dangers of the weapon. "You're talking about releasing something that could change everything," he warned. "What if we can't control it? What if it turns on us?" Evelyn turned to face him. "We don't have a choice. We've already unlocked part of its power. If we don't understand it fully, someone else will. And they might not be as cautious as we are." As Evelyn and Marcus debated the weapon's use, a secret meeting was taking place on a distant planet far from Earth. The Galactic Council had been monitoring the situation on Earth for weeks, and now they were facing an undeniable truth. The weapon that had been discovered on Earth was not just a relic. It was something far more dangerous, something they had been warned about for centuries. The luminaries, the ancient race that had been watching Earth for so long, had been right all along. Ilarion, the luminary representative on the council, stood before his fellow members, his face glowing with a sense of urgency. "The Earth has unlocked the power of the ancient weapon," Ilarion said, his voice filled with dread. "It was never meant for their kind to control. They are not ready." But the council remained divided. Some, like the Zorith representative, were still skeptical. The humans are primitive. They've barely mastered space travel. How could they possibly control such a force? Ilarion's glowing form flickered with frustration. It's not about their level of technology. It's about the weapon's true purpose. It was hidden on Earth for a reason, because the power it holds could shift the balance of the entire galaxy, and now the humans are awakening it. If they learn how to harness it, They could become a force unlike anything we've ever seen. Despite the warnings, the Council was reluctant to take action. They had already underestimated Earth for centuries, dismissing it as a backward planet that posed no real threat. Now, as the weapon on Earth began to stir, they were facing the consequences of their arrogance. Back on Earth, Evelyn and Marcus's team continued to unlock the weapon's secrets. They had learned to harness small amounts of its energy, but they had only scratched the surface. The power within the weapon was beyond anything humanity had ever imagined, and they still didn't fully understand how it worked. As the team gathered in the control room, a series of alarms blared to life. The weapon was reacting, and it was reacting in a way no one had anticipated. "Something's wrong," Marcus said, his voice tight with tension. "It's drawing more energy than we've ever seen before." Evelyn looked at the readings on the screen, her heart racing. "It's not just drawing energy, it's amplifying it. It's like it's feeding off the planet itself." Suddenly, the room shook violently, and the lights flickered. The ground beneath them rumbled as if something deep within the earth had awakened. The power from the weapon surged, and for the first time, the team felt its true potential, its full, terrifying power. "We have to shut it down," Marcus shouted, but it was too late. The weapon was no longer something they could control. It had become a force of nature, pulling energy from the Earth's core and unleashing it into the atmosphere. The very fabric of reality seemed to bend under its power. At that moment, the team realized they were no longer just unlocking a weapon. They were awakening something far older, far more dangerous than they could ever have imagined. The power they had unleashed was not just from Earth. It was from the stars, from an ancient civilization that had long since vanished, leaving behind only fragments of their knowledge. The weapon was a key to something much greater. And as the humans began to understand it, the galaxy began to stir. The luminaries had warned the Galactic Council, but they had not acted quickly enough. The weapon on Earth was no longer just an artifact. It was a beacon, and the galaxy was about to pay the price for leaving Earth's seat at the table empty for so long. The Council's mistake was about to come back to haunt them, and humanity would soon find itself standing at the center of a galactic storm, whether they were ready or not. The power that had been dormant beneath Earth's surface for eons had been awakened, and now there was no turning back. The Earth's surface trembled with power unlike anything seen before. The ancient weapon, now fully activated, surged with energy that seemed to tear at the very fabric of space itself. Across the globe, the sky darkened, and strange, shifting patterns of light appeared in the atmosphere. The ground shook as the Earth's core released its energy in waves, sending pulses of destructive force outward. In the control room, the team watched in disbelief as the monitors displayed increasing levels of energy, far beyond their expectations. Evelyn's hands shook as she tried to make sense of the readings. This isn't just a weapon anymore," she muttered. "It's a signal. A signal to who?" Marcus asked, his voice tight with worry. He was no longer just concerned about the weapon's potential destruction. It was now clear that this was something far more significant. Before Evelyn could answer, the ground beneath them rumbled once more, and the building's alarms blared in response. It was as though something vast and ancient had stirred beneath the Earth. The weapon wasn't just drawing power from the core. It was calling something, or perhaps someone. In the deep silence that followed, a loud crackle echoed through the room, coming from the communication device. The voice that came through was distorted but unmistakable, reverberating with a deep, resonating tone that sent chills down their spines. "This is not your weapon, Earthlings. You have no idea what you have awakened." The voice sent a wave of unease through the entire team. It was not a human voice. This was something else. The sound seemed to emanate from beyond the stars, a deep and ancient force that commanded attention. Marcus turned to Evelyn, his eyes wide with fear. "What is that? Who's speaking?" Before Evelyn could respond, the ground shook again, harder than before. The walls cracked, and dust filled the air. Then, for a brief moment, Everything went silent. The weapon's energy stopped pulsing. The lights flickered and went out, leaving them in darkness. "We've gone too far," Marcus said, his voice barely a whisper, full of dread. "This was never meant for us to control." But before they could react, the device before them began to hum once more, this time with a steady, almost rhythmic pulse. A pattern. It was communicating, somehow. Evelyn took a deep breath. We didn't know what we were dealing with. We were trying to understand it, control it, but now we've triggered something far bigger than us. It's not just technology. It's a force that belongs to the stars. Suddenly, the room was filled with static as a message crackled through the comms again. This time, the voice sounded clearer, more direct. "Earth was never meant to know. You have drawn attention. The Council will come for you. You are no longer safe." The weight of those words hung in the air, suffocating them. Earth had been a forgotten corner of the galaxy, isolated from the great powers that ruled the stars. But now, with the activation of the weapon, everything had changed. Earth's isolation was over. And worse, the galaxy's most powerful forces were about to descend on the planet. As the realization hit them, Evelyn felt a cold wave of fear wash over her. The warning from the voice wasn't just a threat. It was a prediction. The Galactic Council, the ancient, powerful collective that had overseen the galaxy's fate for centuries, had been watching Earth. And now, they would act. The voice had said it clearly. Earth was no longer safe. Elsewhere, across the galaxy, the Council was in turmoil. The luminaries, the ancient race that had been the galaxy's silent guardians, were no longer silent. They had been watching the humans for a long time, waiting to see if they would ever be a threat. But they had underestimated the humans, believing them to be too young and too primitive to wield such a force. Now, the Council was scrambling to understand what Earth had just done. No one had expected this. The weapon wasn't just a key. It was a warning. It was a force that was capable of bending the very laws of space and time. And worse, it had been dormant, hidden for centuries, until humanity unknowingly stumbled upon it. The Council knew that they could not afford to ignore this threat any longer. The balance of power in the galaxy was about to shift, and Earth was at the center of it all. On the Zorath homeworld, a high-ranking official spoke with urgency to the Council. "The weapon on Earth has been activated. We cannot allow them to control it. If they learn to harness its full power, they could be more dangerous than anything we've encountered. We must act quickly." The luminary representative, Ilarion, stood in front of the Council with an expression of deep concern. "We have watched for millennia. The weapon was not meant for their kind. We cannot allow the humans to awaken its full potential. The galaxy cannot withstand it." Despite the urgency, there was hesitation. The Council had been divided in their views on Earth. Some believed the humans were insignificant, while others, like Ilarion, saw the danger they posed if given the chance to control such power. In the quiet moments that followed, the tension was palpable. The galaxy's future rested on the actions of the Council. Earth had become a problem, one they could no longer ignore. Back on Earth, Evelyn and Marcus stood in the ruins of the control room, still reeling from the message. The hum of the weapon continued, and they knew it was only a matter of time before the galactic forces arrived. The stakes were higher than ever before. They were no longer just scientists. They were the keepers of an ancient power that could change the course of history. As Evelyn stared at the glowing relic, she realized one undeniable truth. Earth had been chosen to play a pivotal role in the galaxy's fate. Whether they were ready or not, the universe was about to find out just how dangerous humanity could be. The weapon, a forgotten relic of the stars, had chosen Earth. And now, the galaxy would pay the price. The world was not prepared. Across the globe, nations scrambled to understand the implications of the message, the power of the weapon, and the sudden, terrifying revelation that Earth was no longer hidden in the shadows of the galaxy. Evelyn and Marcus watched, helpless, as they realized the situation had escalated beyond anything they could have imagined. The weapon was not just a threat to Earth, it was a threat to the entire galaxy. Evelyn paced the room, her mind racing. The communication from the mysterious voice had been clear. Earth had stirred the sleeping giants of the universe. The Council, a vast alliance of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations, was now aware of humanity's existence, and they would not tolerate any challenge to their rule. "What are we going to do?" Marcus asked, his voice barely a whisper. His gaze was locked on the weapon's pulsing energy, now steady and constant. It was as if it were waiting for something or someone. "I don't know," Evelyn replied, rubbing her temples in frustration. "We've triggered something, but we can't undo it. The Council is coming, and we don't know what they'll do when they arrive." The words hung heavy in the air, chilling both of them to the core. The Council was not known for mercy. They were a collective of ancient civilizations who had watched the galaxy from the shadows for millennia. They had kept peace, not through diplomacy, but through fear and control. And now they had been forced to turn their gaze to Earth. "We need to warn the world," Marcus said, standing up. "They have to know. Everyone has to know what we've done." Evelyn nodded, but she knew it wouldn't be enough. The world's leaders were already reacting, but they were still trying to make sense of what had just happened. News outlets had reported the mysterious energy surges and strange lights in the sky, but no one could explain the cause. But soon, the Council would make sure there was no more confusion. The galaxy's most powerful species were already mobilizing. Back in the heart of the galaxy, the Council had convened. The luminaries, the most ancient of them all, stood before the assembly of alien species. Ilarion, the luminary representative, spoke with a voice that seemed to carry centuries of knowledge. "The humans have awakened something they should not have," Ilarion said, his eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "This weapon is not meant for their kind. We cannot allow them to harness its power." A ripple of agreement spread through the Council. The Zorith, the fierce warlords of the galaxy, growled in unison, their voices rumbling like thunder. The Rake, a race of brilliant scientists and engineers, exchanged worried glances. "The question is no longer whether we should stop them," Ilarion continued. "The question is whether we can stop them in time." The tension in the room was palpable. The Council knew what was at stake. Earth's potential for destruction, now unleashed, could tip the delicate balance of power in the galaxy. If the humans learned how to control the weapon, they could become the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. And the Council, despite their power, feared what Earth could become. In the midst of this cosmic deliberation, something unexpected occurred. A silent alarm, unnoticed by most, activated in a small chamber at the back of the Council hall. A figure, cloaked in shadow, entered the room. It was a solitary figure, standing at the threshold, watching the proceedings unfold with quiet intensity. The figure's eyes gleamed with an understanding far beyond that of the Council. It was not a member of any known species. This was a being that existed beyond the comprehension of those present. The figure raised a hand, and the room fell into an eerie silence. All eyes turned to the mysterious newcomer, and for the first time, the luminaries faltered. "The humans are not the problem," the figure spoke, its voice like a ripple in the fabric of reality. "The Council is the real threat." The Council's representatives froze. The figure's words echoed with a truth that sent shivers down their spines. For the first time in centuries, the mighty Council of the galaxy had been questioned by an entity far more ancient than any of them. Ilarion narrowed his eyes. "Who are you to question the Council?" The figure did not answer directly. Instead, it spoke of an ancient prophecy, a warning buried deep within the galaxy's oldest texts. The weapon is not a weapon. It is a key, and the key opens a door that was meant to remain locked. The humans, for all their flaws, were not meant to open it, but they have. The figure's presence sent a shockwave through the room. The Council had long believed themselves to be the guardians of the galaxy's fate, but now something was challenging their authority, something that even they could not comprehend. Back on Earth, the situation was becoming more desperate. Evelyn and Marcus watched as the news spread across the world. Strange lights, energy surges, and mysterious signals from the depths of space. The Council's arrival seemed imminent. "This is it," Evelyn whispered, her hand shaking as she looked at the glowing weapon. "We've done it. We've caught their attention. And now, there's no turning back." The weapon hummed louder, its energy swirling like a storm. It was as if it were alive, waiting for something, waiting for the galaxy to come to Earth. And then, just as suddenly as the energy had begun, it stopped. The world held its breath as the sky above seemed to freeze. The pulse of the weapon disappeared, leaving only silence in its wake. But that silence was the calm before the storm. And Evelyn and Marcus knew that whatever came next, humanity would no longer be the passive observers of the galaxy's story. They would be at the heart of it. The question was, would they be its saviors or its destroyers? The Council had been warned. Earth had been awakened. And now, the true battle for the galaxy would begin. The silence that followed the sudden cessation of the weapon's energy pulse felt like the calm before an inevitable storm. Across the globe, people waited with bated breath, unsure of what would come next. The skies above seemed strangely still, and the world's leaders were scrambling to make sense of the situation. The media, once full of speculation and uncertainty, fell quiet, as though the Earth itself had paused, holding its breath for the next chapter. Evelyn stood in the control room, staring at the now dormant weapon in front of her. Its once magnificent glow had dimmed, but its presence still radiated a quiet, foreboding power. Marcus was at her side, his face a mask of worry. "We should have expected this," Marcus said, his voice tight with frustration. "The Council's response will be swift. We've triggered something we can't control. They'll come for us." Evelyn nodded, her mind racing. She had studied the legends, the ancient texts, the whispers in the corners of the galaxy. This weapon, this key, was something far older, far more powerful than anyone had realized. It was a relic from a time when Earth wasn't even a thought in the galaxy's mind. But now, Earth had awakened it, and the consequences were already rippling through the cosmos. "We need to know more," Evelyn said, her voice steady, but tinged with the weight of the moment. "What are we truly dealing with here?" Marcus looked at her with uncertainty. "You mean about the weapon, or about the figure we saw in the council chamber?" "Both," Evelyn replied, her eyes narrowing. "The weapon's just a part of the puzzle. We need to understand what the council has been hiding. Why did they keep us in the dark all this time? Why were we never invited to join their ranks? Why is Earth considered such a threat?" A moment of silence hung between them before Marcus spoke again. "Do you think the Council's been hiding the truth from us? That there's something they've kept secret about Earth?" Evelyn hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, there's more to this than we've been told, more than anyone knows. And that figure, the one who interrupted the Council, it wasn't just a warning. It was a message. They didn't have much time. The weapon had quieted, but the storm that was about to hit Earth was just beginning. Across the stars, ships were already being mobilized, drawn by the unexpected pulse of power from the Earth. The Council had learned that they had underestimated humanity, but that would not stop them from taking action. Meanwhile, far from Earth, within the heart of the Council, tensions were escalating. Ilarion and the other luminaries stood gathered once more, surrounded by the galaxy's most powerful beings. The ancient figure, whose warning had shaken them to the core, had left as quickly as it had arrived, vanishing into the shadows of the cosmos. But its message lingered in their minds, gnawing at their consciences. "The humans are not the problem," the figure had said. And those words were a threat more dangerous than anything the Council had anticipated. What if the weapon was not the true danger? What if it was something else, something hidden even from the Council's most watchful eyes? Ilarion turned to face his fellow luminaries, his gaze filled with a cold determination. "We have no choice. We must go to Earth. We will show them the price of their curiosity. But even as he spoke, doubt crept into his mind. The figure had been right. The humans had opened something. Something that had been buried for millennia. But what could they do now? The Council was too powerful to allow Earth to exist beyond their control, yet the weapon that Earth now possessed could alter the balance of power in ways no one had anticipated. Back on Earth, Evelyn and Marcus were making their final preparations. They had uncovered fragments of ancient texts that hinted at the weapon's true origin. It wasn't a weapon of destruction, as the Council had believed. It was a key. But to what? Evelyn's fingers hovered over the console in front of her. She had gathered all the data she could, but something was still missing. One last piece. She reached for the final encrypted file, a code that had been left behind by the beings who had created the weapon. The message within had remained hidden for centuries, sealed by the Council themselves. Until now. As she decrypted the file, the truth began to unfold before her eyes. It wasn't just the Council that feared Earth. It was something much older, something that had once existed before the galaxy had taken its current form. The weapon had been created as a safeguard, designed to prevent a force from returning, a force that had once ravaged the galaxy, leaving entire civilizations in ruins. Earth, as it turned out, had been forgotten by the Council for a reason. Not because they wanted to protect humanity, but because they had kept Earth hidden to ensure that this ancient force could never find its way back to the galaxy. Evelyn's heart skipped a beat. The realization hit her like a bolt of lightning. Earth's true power wasn't just in the weapon. It was in the very fact that Earth had been untouched by the ancient force that had once destroyed the galaxy. The Council had feared this truth, and for good reason. If the ancient force were to return, it could unravel everything. But what did this mean for humanity? Could they control this ancient power, or were they destined to be consumed by it? Marcus walked over, looking over her shoulder. What's happening? What did you find? Evelyn didn't answer right away. Her eyes were locked on the final piece of the puzzle. She had uncovered something else, something more disturbing. The key wasn't just meant to keep the force at bay. It was also a beacon, a signal to the very beings who had once been the galaxy's rulers. The Council had been keeping Earth's true role in the galaxy a secret. They were not the protectors of peace. They were the keepers of a much darker truth. And now, Earth was on the verge of awakening a force far beyond their control. The galaxy was about to be reminded of the terrible mistake it had made, and Earth was at the center of it all. The weight of the discovery sat heavily on Evelyn's shoulders. Earth's true role was far more significant than anyone could have imagined. The galaxy's leaders had always feared that humanity might unlock this ancient power, but they had never thought it would happen so soon. The very key to unlocking the galaxy's forgotten history now rested in humanity's hands. Evelyn's thoughts raced as she ran through the implications of the information she had uncovered. The beacon they had inadvertently triggered was calling out to something older, something much darker than the galaxy's current powers. And that something was coming. It wasn't just a threat to Earth, it was a threat to the entire galaxy. "We've awoken it," Evelyn whispered to herself, almost in disbelief. Marcus stood beside her, staring at the data screen. His expression was grim. "What do we do now? How do we stop this?" Evelyn's mind raced, but she had no clear answer. The weapon that Earth had uncovered wasn't just a tool for defense. It was part of a much larger puzzle, a puzzle that humanity wasn't prepared to solve. The Council's fear of Earth had always been rooted in the ancient force that humanity had unknowingly been protecting. But now that they had triggered it, there was no turning back. "This isn't just about the Council anymore," Evelyn said, her voice steady but full of urgency. "It's about survival. Ours, theirs, everyone's." Suddenly, the calmness of the control room was broken by a flashing light on the console, a transmission from the stars, an urgent message. Evelyn hesitated, but there was no time to waste. She tapped the screen to accept the transmission. The image that appeared before her was a familiar one. Ilarion, the leader of the Council. His face was a mix of frustration and fear. He looked older than the last time they had seen him, his eyes betraying a sense of dread. "Evelyn," Ilarion began, his voice grave. "You have no idea what you've done." "What do you want, Ilarion?" Evelyn's tone was sharp. She had no time for games. The truth was out, and she wanted answers. "We never invited Earth because we knew this day would come," Ilarion said, his voice tinged with regret. "You have triggered something that cannot be undone. The ancient force you've awoken, it was sealed away for a reason. It is not something any of us can control." Evelyn's stomach twisted. "What do you mean? What is this force?" Ilarion's face grew darker. "It's an entity, one that existed long before any of us. It was capable of destroying entire civilizations with a single thought. The Council's role was to guard against it, to keep the galaxy from falling into chaos again. But your weapon, the key, it has drawn its attention." The reality of the situation was sinking in. The ancient force was coming, and there was no stopping it. The weapon wasn't just a tool. It was a warning, a signal, and now Earth was the beacon that would lead the entity straight to them all. "Then what do we do?" Marcus asked, his voice filled with desperation. "How do we stop this?" Ilarion hesitated. "There is no stopping it. The entity will come. It will find its way to Earth, to the source. We can only prepare. The Council will send its fleets, but it will not be enough. The only hope now is that humanity is strong enough to survive this. That you, Evelyn, and your people can rise to the challenge." Evelyn felt a cold chill wash over her. The weight of the responsibility was overwhelming. The future of the galaxy, of humanity itself, now rested on their shoulders. "We will rise," Evelyn said, her voice steady but filled with resolve. "We've been underestimated for too long. We'll fight. We'll protect our home." Ilarion's eyes narrowed. "You don't understand the gravity of what you're facing. You have no idea what this entity is capable of. But if you're willing to fight, then we will stand with you." Before Evelyn could respond, the transmission abruptly ended, leaving her and Marcus alone in the room, the weight of the galaxy pressing down on them. The war that was about to unfold would be unlike anything humanity had ever faced. The entity was coming, and the galaxy's fate hung in the balance. Evelyn knew they had to be ready. But the question remained, could they survive the storm that was coming? They turned their attention to the weapon, now more than ever realizing its true purpose. It was not a mere tool for war. It was the last line of defense. Humanity's final chance to survive. The distant stars seemed to flicker ominously outside the window, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. The calm before the storm. Evelyn knew that they had only one choice now. They would face the entity, the ancient force, head-on. They would fight for Earth, and for the future of the galaxy. And in that moment, she made a vow. They would not go down without a fight. The galaxy would regret ever underestimating Earth, because humanity was not going to be the one to kneel. Earth had always been seen as small and insignificant, but now, the universe would learn just how wrong it had been.